Welcome in. Hail to the podcast brought to you by Maize and Blue Review. We cover Michigan for the Rivals Network. You can find us at michigan.rivals.com. We're here, special edition on Wednesday? Yep, Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Sorry, we obviously went live with the breaking news following the Bryce Underwood commitment last week, and then with the holiday and everything, been a little messed up. So we did want to check in and talk to you guys a little bit, especially ahead of the Ohio State game. Give you a little Q&A for anybody who joins us on some recruiting stuff. And then obviously we will be back Sunday at our usual scheduled time to discuss the Michigan-Ohio State game after the fact. And then I think we'll probably have some more recruiting information by then as well. Darbo already in the chat making a scene. So this will be a good one. Josh Henschke, Intel Insider Publisher, joining us. Now I have a incredible evening of watching cartoons with a 7-year-old ahead of me. Are you going to venture out for the greatest bar night of the year?
Maybe. I won't be around a bunch of 7-year-olds. I know that.
I said one.
I know, but I'm just saying I won't be around a bunch of 7-year-olds. I was gonna say, Darbo, why have you got a J.U. Chesson profile picture? But I was just gonna mess with him. But
is it Chesson? No, it's
no, I know, but it would be funny if it was.
Darbo, don't give me money, Darbo.
No,
don't do that.
Give that to Champion Circle, buddy.
Yeah.
You don't need that.
Plus, I know how mad your wife would be if she knew you were throwing money my way. Ew. I don't know what $1.99 is worth in Iowa, but it's got to be worth a ton. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, joining us, been a very busy guy. Tail end of football season, beginning of basketball season, Mr. Brock Heilig. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Yeah, this is the busiest time of the year. Definitely a lot going on. To be honest, I didn't know that this was the biggest bar night of the year. I figured that would have been like
the night before Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll be watching Trey Donaldson and Danny Wolf play Xavier tonight. So yeah, and I figured I'd break out the hat too, just preparing for the 20-degree weather that it's going to feel like in Columbus on Saturday.
Which I think Ohio State would be so happy for. Nice, cold, windy conditions, right? I was gonna ask about the hat, but yeah, you're all prepped, ready to go. We have not recapped the Northwestern game. It's Wednesday. There's not a huge point in getting deep into the minutia of the Northwestern game, but I think it's fair to say that was a result we were all very pleased with. I said in our score predictions, I had a weird feeling. I don't know what it was. I mean, you get the double bye this year, right? Coming out of the bye previously, Michigan didn't look any different, but I just had a weird feeling that we were going to see a strong Michigan here. I don't know if it was some of the comments about buy-in or the fact this was going to be the last game for a lot of seniors and some juniors. Obviously, Northwestern, a weaker opponent, probably ready to fold up shop for the year as well. But even then, a team hasn't scored 30 all year, scores 50. The defense, again, continues to look better and better every week under Wink Martindale, 50-6. And we've talked all year about the how, right? And the offense, the formations, the play calling, some tendency breakers. I thought the script plays at the beginning and then especially later in the second half, it just looked like a different Michigan than we've seen this year. And that's awfully encouraging ahead of the biggest game of the year, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not going to see any big angry rants from me today. So I think if you, I know
I've got one in the pocket if we happen to go that direction. So we'll see.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm sure to the disappointment of many listening. No, I think if you wanted to play your best football, now is probably the best time. I mean, I think Michigan did take advantage of a pretty bad Northwestern team. I don't think they're the worst team that Michigan has played all year, but this is what they were supposed to do against inferior opponents all year. And there are a few inferior opponents that Michigan has played that they should have won this year. So it's a good sign, especially knowing what you've got looming coming up this weekend. And honestly, they need, all the momentum and all the help they can get in this one, because it's going to take a pretty Herculean effort to get this one over the finish line if they're hoping for an upset. But just from a Northwestern standpoint, pretty much everything you wanted to see. The interception is, it happened. It's that's just what you're going to get. But other than that, I mean, the bounce back, the response, the 2-minute drive at the end of the half, and then obviously the response coming from that drive in the second half. A lot of things worked. Offensive line looked like an offensive line, like that looked like a real traditional Michigan win there. So a lot of good to take away from it. And you just kind of hope somehow they can find a way to bottle that up and translate that into next week, this weekend. And from there, anything can happen. I know obviously the spread is what it is this weekend, but I know it's cliche, throw out all the records and, throw out all the spreads when it comes to this rivalry when, Michigan has been pretty bad in the 2000s against Ohio State. But yeah, it's just different. Michigan's got all the pressures on Ohio State this weekend. They have to overcome all of this pressure. Michigan just has to show up and play football, and if they win, that's hilarious. They'll win. And if they lose, it's like, well, Michigan's it's a bad down team this year. So, Ohio State has to fight against these ghosts that they've been, seeing for the past 3 years. So, does that mean that, I think Michigan wins? No, I don't. But, I think all in all things considered, what we saw from last weekend heading into this week, you want to see Michigan playing their best football, and they are. And now this is their first complete game of the year. So anything can happen.
Yeah, that was clearly the best performance of the season put together by Michigan. Just all around dominance. I mean, we didn't see it a whole lot in the first half, but in the second half, Michigan really turned it on. Everything was clicking really. Wink Martindale. That was the first time all season Michigan kept its opponent to fewer than 10 points, and obviously scoring 50 was far and away the most they'd scored all season. But really cool to see Khalil Mullings and Donovan Edwards score touchdowns on both of their last carries in the big house. I thought that was a cool moment that Khalil pointed out afterward in the press conference. Both of them last carries in the big house, they scored touchdowns, so pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, that was I don't think anyone was really expecting that a 50 burger. I think Northwestern looked like they were quitting at the end. But obviously what Michigan's going to see on Saturday is not Northwestern level talent. And Wink Martindale said it on the Inside Michigan Football Radio show yesterday. He said Ohio State's a different animal, and it's going to be completely different. They've got 3 werewolves at wide receiver. And so, yeah, Michigan's really going to have to, I mean, if they play like they did last week, then yeah, they might have a shot, but that's really the only chance they have in this one is if they play their A+ game, and we'll see if they can do it 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah. I mean, you're going into this one at this point, fully anticipating you won't have Will Johnson again. We still don't really have a clear answer on what in the world is going on with Jair Hill. In that situation, Amir Hall played really well in that game, but I mean, the secondary has been banged up as it is all year. You'd like to be at full strength there. The thing that's going to be key for me is the thing that's key every year in this game, but especially as of late. Nice to see Khalil Mullings get treated like the RB1 that he is, right? I think he's got to have a big game against Ohio State. When you start to get into the things that Michigan used to be really good at and maybe have struggled with this year, third down, they were 11 of 16 against Northwestern, while Northwestern was 5 of 14. So we didn't see that kind of disparity as well. I think it's that simple. I think Michigan's going to have to run the ball. And defensively, I think they had 6 or 7 sacks against Northwestern. That defensive front against a banged up Ohio State offensive line that frankly has done an incredible job adapting. It seems like every injury that gets thrown at them, you hear like, well, we're going to move our future NFL guard to left tackle and we're going to move this in here. And it's like, I don't know. And it's worked out for them largely. I mean, they've been dealt some serious blows on that line, but I feel like there's a chance for Michigan to win in the trenches there. Michigan's defensive line versus Ohio State's offensive line. And will Ryan Day lean on the run game? We've been talking about this. They made a huge commitment to it this year. But if Michigan can hang around and get into another situation like they've been the last few years where it's close in the third quarter and they're stuffing the run, will Ryan Day continue to run the football, or will he panic and go back to his old ways and try and force some throws, which has been advantageous for Michigan in the past?
That's the $1 million question right there. Yeah, I mean, look, Michigan and Ohio State might play this game. Ohio State might win this game 99 times, but the one time, that's all that might matter on Saturday.
Did you read my prediction?
No.
Okay, that's what you're gonna laugh when you look at our staff prediction.
All right. Looks like I should probably read your stuff then. Just hold on myself.
Some editor you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, it's just it could be the one time on Saturday where things can go right, and I think the defensive line has really, has been disruptive as it is, has really helped that back end of the defense out really well. I mean, obviously Zeke Berry being what he is, when originally kind of I wouldn't say forced, but slotted into kind of a safety nickel hybrid, and him proving to be a competent boundary corner is, is a really
35 snaps at corner last week. Literally nobody took more snaps at corner than Zeke Berry.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I just don't know if Michigan has the horses, especially at corner, to keep up if Will Johnson's not available. And let's be honest, even if he does play, he's not going to be 100%. And we don't know what. I mean, has Will Johnson ever played at 100% in Michigan? Like, I don't even know. But
that pick six to start the year might have been.
that was probably the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah,
just downhill from there. Look, they need perfection, really. I mean, there's no such thing as perfect football, but to beat a team like this, and it's that has all the experience and has the talent, like very similar to what Michigan had last year, you just need a lot to go right. And as we just mentioned, the good thing is they have zero pressure on their shoulders right now. So they can just show up and play their brand of football and roll the ball out there, and whatever happens. They're not going to be worried about, how a win would impact the bowl game and anything like that. I mean, they're going to go to a lower tier bowl game, whether they win this game or not. The most important part now is kind of playing for pride and being 3-0 in the big rivalry games this year, which no one's going to care what Michigan's final record is if you go 3-0 against Northwestern, Michigan State, and Ohio State in the year. I mean,
I was wondering what you were counting as the third one.
Yeah, obviously they're 2-0 in trophy games. I mean, it matters.
It's a great trophy, absolutely. But yeah, no, I agree with you. When you think about the momentum happening off the field, the recruiting as well, nobody wanted to be 7-5, but if you beat Michigan State and Ohio State and you land Bryce Underwood, which we'll get to, and everything else that's kind of trending in this positive momentum. That's why, I said back to the future for this pod. It
right.
Feels like there's been this big shift. I'm with you. I think you bring incredible momentum into next year with a win in this game. Actually, I mean, even just being super competitive might be enough, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I think Detroit Lions fan brings up a good point here. If Michigan can muddy this game up, they have a shot. Sure. Yeah, look, Michigan isn't going to win this game pretty. I mean, they're just not equipped to win pretty. They're not going to be a finesse team. It's going to be, if they're going to win
300 yards for Davis Ward.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's going to be gritty. It's going to be gross. It's not going to be pretty. But, that's how Michigan has won a lot of games this year, outside of last week where they just dominated from start to finish. But look, there is a scenario. I can't sit here and say there's no shot of Michigan winning this weekend. I mean, yeah, obviously that's why they play these games. The likelihood, in my opinion, is very low, which I think is two completely different conversations. But if some bounces can go Michigan's way, that doubt starts to creep in a little bit. If you're Ohio State, oh God, here we go. I mean, we saw it countless times with Michigan against Ohio State, that, when Ohio State, Michigan throws a few punches at the beginning and then Ohio State counters, and then Michigan is kind of backpedaling a little bit and going, oh man, here we go again. The same old stuff. That matters. That mental part matters. And yeah, there's a lot of players on this team that haven't played in this game, over the last 3 years. I mean, there's still obviously returners, but so it is essentially kind of a new team, but that mentality matters. So yeah, if Michigan can kind of get this game somehow, some way into their own hands and how they like to play, then yeah, there's a shot. But that's where it comes back to Ohio State. If they want to win a national championship, you have to win regardless of what a game looks like, however your opponent is playing the game. So if they're equipped to win a national championship, and if they don't win this game, I mean, I would dread to be over that side of the fence, tell you what.
It kind of reminds me of Herb Brooks in the movie Miracle, when the United States is going to play Russia.
Hold on. That's a true story, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Yep. The 1980 Olympics. I know. Yeah. But it reminds me of a speech there. You guys were talking like, if we played them 10 times, they might win 9, but not tonight, not this game, all this kind of stuff. That's what it seems like for Michigan in this one. Like, Ohio State is the better team. If they did play 10 times, Ohio State would probably win 9.
Yep.
But Michigan's just got to get a few things to go its way. And you guys were talking about gaining momentum into the offseason and into 2025. I'd almost take it as far as to say, like, if Michigan won this game, the season would borderline be a success. Like as bad as it's been all year, you finished 7-5, you beat your 2 biggest rivals, you land the number 1 recruit in the country. I think plenty of fans, if you told them that that's how 2024 would play out after the national championship, I think they would take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And and like you said, Josh, they don't have anything to lose. They can go in there and play free. And there's no pressure. There was so much pressure on them the last 3 years, especially the last 2, being undefeated with the Big Ten title on the line. Obviously, in 2021, the Big Ten championship was on the line too, but neither team was undefeated. But it's decided everything the last 3 years, and now obviously Michigan isn't in that same position, so they can just go out there and play football. And I feel like that does give them a little bit of an advantage, not an advantage in the game, but that gives them a chip on their shoulder, I think, to where if they go out there and just have fun playing football, you never know what can happen. And I do think too, for me personally, the first 5 to 10 minutes of this game are incredibly important because to your point, Josh, the mental aspect is there for Ohio State. There were so many years throughout the 2010s when Michigan would walk into the game essentially already defeated. They knew they were going to lose before they stepped on the field. And, something would go Ohio State's way and they would crumble. And I think Ohio State might be in that spot at this point where these seniors came back for this game. There's so much pressure on them to perform in these 60 minutes that if something doesn't go their way, the crowd's going to get silent. Everyone's going to start thinking, here we go again. This can't happen again. And if Michigan can build off that momentum and make it a close game in the third quarter, second half, like you said, Josh, you never know what's going to happen. Maybe Ryan Day goes back to his passing and you see an interception or two. But for me, the first 5 to 10 minutes of this game are crucial. If Ohio State gets up by 2 possessions, it's over. They're going to run away with it. But if Michigan can just build momentum early, it could really go either way.
Yeah, I'm laughing because in my prediction, which we'll post obviously before the game, but I literally wrote Ohio State probably wins this game 9 out of 10 times. Michigan wants to do everything possible to make this the 1 of the 10, right? And yeah, you guys are hitting on it, man. The mental aspect of this. I saw Ryan Day's comments, and I saw a couple other players' comments as well. I've been pretty vocal about the fact that in the past, I thought a lot of what Ryan Day has said about this rivalry feels like him saying what he thinks he needs to say. And he's never really been, indoctrinated into it, to steal a term from Sharon Moore earlier this week. I feel like he's been annoyed by it as much as anything. The comment he made this week, I want to tread lightly here. I respect Ryan Day a lot for what he's done for mental health awareness and mental health care and things that him and his family have done because of the tragic loss of his father. But he made a comment this week saying that like losing this game to Michigan and over is like the worst thing that's happened to his family, except for that. And Ohio State fans just pounced on it. Like, there we go. This is what I've wanted from him. He finally gets it. That's my coach, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's not healthy. Right? Like, what if you do lose this game again? What are you saying? Yeah. You know what I mean? And I almost more sided with him about like, man, these guys are calling for me to be fired. Look at my record as a head coach. I get how important beating Michigan is, but man, right? And this year too, with the expanded playoff, they could lose to Michigan and it might not mean a damn thing, right? They could end up not playing in the conference championship game, which I've already told you guys a bunch. I think is a gift. You get a bye anyway. You're probably the 5 or 6 seed, right? You get a bye, then you get a home playoff game. And then what's your gift for that? You get to play Boise State instead of Oregon again or whatever, right? So like, if they go and win a national championship, they're not going to care if they lost this game right at the end of the day. But I feel like they're carrying the last 3 years into this game. And there's this false narrative that winning this year for Ohio State somehow avenges what's happened the last 3 years. And that might be true to everyone in Columbus who's going to want to believe that and still thinks Connor Stallions is the only reason Michigan won. But it's not the case. So they're carrying so much pressure into this game. And then on the other side, Michigan hasn't been very good. And it's 20-point dogs and really playing with house money. If they lose, we kind of get to we make fun of Michigan State fans for this a lot, where it's like, well, you only beat us when we suck. Yeah, but we beat you a lot. Do you understand what you're saying? Right. So like Michigan fans are almost going to be like, yeah, we weren't good this year, but that natty last year is a nice little cushion for me. Because Brock, you're right. If somebody would have come to me in 2023 and said, here's the deal. You're going undefeated. Michigan's going to win the national championship. Everything's going to blow up. Harbaugh's going to leave. All the guys that were here are going to leave. You're going to go into next year. It's going to be rough. You're going to have this transition with Moore, but you're going to get Bryce Underwood and all the momentum moving forward, blah, blah. And your NIL is going to be figured out, et cetera. Would you take that deal? Yup. There's a Michigan fan in the world that would say no to that deal, right? So that vibe, I think, really helps Michigan in this game if it can translate on the field. To Brock's point, if Michigan goes down 14-0 early, well, whatever mental piece you thought you had is gone, right? So they got to hang around and annoy Ohio State enough to be a factor late, right? Ohio State's been the ones making the mistakes and not making the right calls on 4th downs and making the dumb penalties. That's got to continue. That mental piece of the game's got to continue. And then you got to out-tough them at the end. And if that means, I think your average fan said it, Kalel Mullings needs to run the ball 20 plus times. That seems like a given to me. I don't know what's gotten them to this point, but in this game, please, I'm begging you, it's got to happen, right?
Yeah, I think the narrative of winning the national championship has kind of shifted all of those things, because if Michigan didn't win the national championship last year, then yeah, I mean, Ohio State could very well could come into this game and with the feeling of wiping away the last 3 years, because Michigan missed a massive opportunity. But yeah, no, it's not that. I mean, they need to obviously get back to their own winning ways in this rivalry or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, winning the national championship alleviated a lot of that pressure, Michigan's own pressure, when it comes to this rivalry and this year and everything else. I mean, it's not It's not cope, it's facts. I mean, Jim Harbaugh left. It's not the same team. It's not cope, it's facts. I mean, Michigan is recruiting arguably better than it ever has under Jim Harbaugh. So you hope that kind of translates to the next level. And obviously you got the portal to work in there too. So, yeah, I mean, look, yeah, winning the national championship changes a lot of the conversation heading into this year. So, look, we'll just see. We'll just see what happens. So,
Another advantage I think Michigan has is that whether Michigan fans like it or not, this is going to be the last game that a lot of big name guys are playing in. You know, Colston Loveland, if he plays, he essentially admitted a few weeks ago he's not going to play in the bowl game. Mason Graham likely won't. Kenneth Grant probably won't. Will Johnson, if he does play in this game, it will probably be his last one. If he doesn't, he's already played his last game. Donovan Edwards, Kalel Mullings, all these guys. This is going to be their last chance to cement their legacy. And a lot of them already have because they're all national champions and things like that. But this is it's especially for the guys that are leaving early to go to the draft. This is going to be the last time they play a game in a Michigan uniform. And I think they're going to do everything in their power. And, obviously they give 100% every play and they play with all this effort and things like that. But there's just another notch, I feel like, that when it's your last game, which I think a lot of these guys do, when you have that in the back of your mind and it's against your biggest rival, I think there's another gear. And I do think you're going to see a lot of these guys use that. Josiah Stewart's another guy. I don't know if he'd choose to play in the bowl game or not, but I think that is one advantage that Michigan has. Obviously, Ohio State has, like I mentioned, all the seniors that came back for this game. But then again, that comes with all the pressure of trying to win it and avenge the last 3 years, like you said, Trevor. So it's going to be the last time a lot of these guys are playing in Michigan uniforms, and I think they're going to do everything they can to show Michigan fans one last time who they are.
And let's be clear, everything we've just said still has to overcome a massive advantage that Ohio State has. They're just clearly a better team. A lot of things coming into the year that I was like, well, this has got to go right for Ohio State and this has got to go right. A lot of those things have, right? Like one of my biggest contentions we talked about with the wide receivers was like, okay, you've had elite receivers year after year after year. Like you're banking on a freshman this year, blah, blah. Jeremiah Smith might end up being the best one out of all of them. Yeah. I mean, there's something about these younger receivers that, like, I don't know if it's they don't know how good they are yet, or like, I've made some comments about Marvin Harrison making a business decision on those interceptions last year. Like, Jeremiah Smith is just making unbelievable catches, and he's so young right now. He's just willing to risk anything to make plays, right? It's a huge advantage to have a guy like that, and he's unbelievable. And the running backs haven't been unbelievable for them, but they're good, right? Judkins is good. Again, I think the weight's really on Day and Chip Kelly and arguably Brian Hartline and what they do with the play calling in this offense. And if there's any tension there, if the game gets close, right? So look, let's talk predictions. Ohio State should and very likely will win this game. And a blowout is probably more likely than even a close game, let alone a Michigan win, right? But everything we've said to kind of talk ourselves into this being in the realm of possibility, Josh, are you willing to predict it's in that realm, or I guess even the cover? I think 20.5 seems like a lot. Not that Michigan or Ohio State couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But the spread feels like that could be a lot to me. But where are you on your prediction here, Michigan having a shot in this game?
No, it's funny. I forgot what I predicted in our predictions draft. I think it was I predicted Michigan to cover the spread. I think the spread's a little, well, I shouldn't say it's a little too high because, like,
I get why it's there, but it still feels funny.
It does. It feels high, but like Ohio State could win. Like I think I picked 31-17. So that's still a pretty big margin of Ohio State winning, but it's not covering the spread. So I don't know, man. I don't think Michigan's winning this game. I just don't. I mean, realistically, you got to look at everything and not in such a small window. I just don't think Michigan can make the plays needed to. I mean, you look at how they did against Oregon and get at home, and a missed opportunity against Indiana. They just missed pieces, and they just, even if when they're playing better, I just don't think they have the horses to get it done. I would happily eat all the crow imaginable on Sunday if they get a win, but I do think they cover the spread. I don't think it matters if they do or don't.
Right.
But yeah, I've got Ohio State winning 31-17.
Yeah, I've got Ohio State winning too. I can't predict Michigan to win, and I wrote this in my official prediction. If Michigan had any consistent receiving threat outside of Colston Loveland, I'd feel a lot better about potentially picking them to pull off the upset. But Tyler Morris last week, like that was a career day for him, and he had what, like 6 catches and 70 yards or something. Like for that to be a career day for him is kind of astounding. But Samaj Morgan didn't play. You know, they just, Fred Moore has been a non-factor. They just don't have any receiving threats, and I can't even imagine what'll happen if Colston Loveland doesn't play in this game. I don't know where you get any receiving from at all. Yeah. But yeah, if Michigan had other receivers alongside Colston Loveland, I could maybe see it, but I can't predict Michigan to win. But I did write too in my prediction that there have been times in this rivalry's history when Michigan's been big time underdogs and they've pulled off like huge upsets. Looking at 1996, I think it was 13-9. Ty Streets had a touchdown. Michigan was 17-point underdogs.
Look at you.
I did a lot of research. You
were like -6 years old.
Yeah. And then going back even further in 1969, this one's more famous, but the 24-12 game when Bo beat Woody and the team of the century there at the Big House 24-12. Michigan was big underdogs in both those games, and there have been times when they've been able to pull it out. But I can't see it this time.
If I had to make my prediction with money on the line, I couldn't pick Michigan. But luckily I don't gamble. So I've allowed my heart to talk me into this. Like I realistically, I think Ohio State's going to win, but I want to have one of us make a prediction for Michigan to win. So I've talked myself into it. I think about the 2017 game, Brock, where it was just a funky year all year for Michigan. They had serious quarterback issues. The really talented players that they had, it didn't feel like were having the impact we expected. It was just kind of a funky year coming off of 16. And to this day, I argue that might be Jim Harbaugh's best game plan. I remember at the end of that first quarter, I'm like, are they going to win this football game? Yeah. I think they're going to win this football game. JT Barrett gets hurt, and you're thinking, oh my gosh. And of course, Dwayne Haskins comes in and becomes an Ohio State legend. And John O'Korn, the now vocal John O'Korn, throws one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen in my life. Anyway.
Well, I think another thing too, now you're mentioning like the 2010s, it's that how does Sherrone Moore motivate his guys this week? Because you talk about a guy like Brady Hoke. There's one thing that you cannot say about Brady Hoke is that he didn't have his guys ready for Ohio State. Every time they played Ohio State, they were ready. And I think how Sherrone Moore, it gets his guys ready for this game and how they come out. If they come out flat, then, you got to think, oh boy, like he's got to work on his motivational skills here. Not his first rodeo, obviously, right. But as a leader, as when guys are rallying around you, you have to, and the Ohio State game speaks for itself, but you still have to get guys up and motivated. So I'm curious to see how this team will look coming out of the gate, out of this thing. And, it's not a direct reflection on what the future of this rivalry is going to look like, but, you'd much rather And I will give Sharon credit here too. Like at points where the team could have just quit, they never quit. They never gave up, and that's what you like to see out of a team that's struggling, is that they're not just quitting and giving up on the year. So, it's the emotional side too, and obviously, Sharon doesn't keep his emotions tucked away at all. So that's not going to be an issue either. But you'd like to see how that kind of translates to the field on Saturday, and that's obviously going to be the way things go from here on out. But hey, I mean, they're 2-0 in trophy games this year, so I don't, this. I'm not concerned about how guys getting up for these games, because just the way they've been playing in those 2 games. But I mean, this is a whole different beast, man. Like, yeah, Brady Hoke had some bad teams, but he had those teams ready to go for Ohio State.
You made me think of it. An average fan brings it up. The 2013 game, that was one where Michigan had nothing to lose and went for 2 at the end. I still love the going for 2. Never really loved the play call, but look, I wish this game wasn't in Columbus. If it was in Ann Arbor, that would obviously be a huge help as well. But look, from what we have been hinted at or able to read between the lines, or some intel we've been able to gather, we know Michigan already spends 365 days a year thinking about Ohio State. And in 2021, there seemed to be this flip, not only internally at Michigan, where it's like, hey, we don't have to convince ourselves we can beat them. We're going to convince ourselves we will beat them. And that little change seemed to matter. But also with Day at Ohio State, it felt like they switched sides, right? In terms of the way they approached this game. And what we know now, like I said, with some of the information we know, is Michigan spent the entire bye week preparing for Ohio State and essentially pretended Northwestern was Ohio State with their prep as well. So they're going into this game arguably with 3 weeks of game plan implementation for Ohio State. That the schedule's worked out. And you could argue maybe that's why they beat Northwestern as well as they did. Again, Northwestern's not a great team. I'm not trying to whatever, but like there was just something different in that game, and I'm continuing to grab onto that. We will never be told the truth about play calling. We know Moore said because he admitted that he had a bigger role in the offense in recent weeks. We're never going to find out the truth of what that role was, but I saw it. It's tangible. I saw it, right? I think this is going to be one of those funky games where we're back to the race to 30. If Michigan can score more than 30, and they can keep Ohio State under 30, that number, I hope people understand what I mean by that. Sometimes I feel like I sound like John Madden. Yeah, if you score more than 30 and the other team scores less, you're going to win the game, But I think that's the race, right? And I'm more confident in Wink and the defense than I have been all year. I've been really hard on the guy, but like he's made adjustments. And some of them are staggering. Makari Page is the nickel on this team now.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's interesting.
Zeke Berry's a corner, and Brandon Hillman's getting a lot of run, and Wesley Walker all of a sudden is getting a lot of run. Some of that's injury based too, but like you can see where they've adjusted the scheme.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up Wink because he was on Inside Michigan Football this week, and he was basically saying, "Oh, we've only run out like 25."
How great is that old Taco Bell logo, by the way?
Oh yeah, look at that. How old's that cup? No, I'm just kidding.
No, they're doing. You know what? Taco Bell, if you want to sponsor us, this decade's like throwback thing that they're doing. My God, I am in college stoner days, dude. I've had so many gorditas and double deckers and whatever the last few weeks. So good.
Long as it's not upper deckers, because then I'd be concerned for your toilet.
Hey, there's a poop reference.
Yeah. No, it's funny that you brought up Wink, because he was on Inside Michigan Football this week, and he was talking about, John Jansen asked him, how much of the defense have you shown this year? And he made multiple hints that there's still a lot that they're going to show. I mean, he said 25% of the defense that he's played this year, and he said, this is kind of one of those games where you just roll the balls out and see what happens, and so it kind of hints. I just hope that they don't try to be they try to do too much to
smartest man in the room syndrome.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened in that 2006 game. But on the opposite end, it's kind of what happened in that 2006 game against
2018.
2006 against Ohio State, where they defensively, they did a completely different package than Michigan has been studying for all year, which, almost didn't matter, but at the end did matter. So like at the same breath, I mean, I can see them maybe doing something like that where they kind of give different looks defensively that Ohio State hasn't seen all year on tape. But I'm worried at the same time that they try to do too much. Like Wink tries to get too cute with it and stays away from what works. I don't believe he's not dumb. I don't believe he's dumb. And, I don't think he's going to purposely torpedo a game plan. But that's kind of my concern is that, the whole 25% of the defensive package that they've shown, if they try to trot out whatever percentage of the 75 that they haven't shown, how that looks and how that translates to the field. So that's kind of got me worried about it. And I don't even know what the offensive percentages look like because I dread to think what they haven't shown. I don't think it honestly matters, but defensively, that this is going to be that's going to be what they hang their hat on in this game is defensively. And so I just hope they don't get too cute.
Yeah, next thing you know, Mason Graham is not going to be lined up at edge. He's going to be lined up at linebacker or something.
Boundary corner.
Yeah, Wink's just going to be rolling out all sorts of different kind of stuff. But yeah, they can't.
Mason Curtis is going to play every position.
Oh yeah. He actually has too, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, but they can't, like you said, Josh. They can't go away from what works. I mean, you gotta, as much as Wink may want to roll out different packages that they haven't shown all season, the 75% that he alluded to on the radio show, that might be great and all, and it might work, but you can't get too cute because that's when guys are in positions they haven't been in before in game situations.
Yes.
And things start collapsing. It might work for a brief moment while Ohio State still hasn't adjusted to what they're seeing. If Michigan does roll out a new package or something like that, but you just got to go out there and let your guys be themselves. I mean, put them in areas to be successful and trust the talent that you do have. And that's specific for the defense because that's how Michigan's going to win this game is defensively. Trevor, you said the race to 30. I'd be shocked if Michigan got to 30 points in this game.
Yeah,
I don't see a situation where that happens. So Michigan's really going to have to rely on the defense, and probably force a couple turnovers, maybe get a defensive score. I mean, for this to really be competitive, but
you need some short fields.
Yeah. And I will say too that I don't think I think there's a non-zero chance that Michigan's defensive line really takes this game over and completely annihilates Ohio State's offensive line, and the Buckeyes literally cannot do anything on offense because the pressure from the front four is too much. I mean, it's going to be the most talented front four that Ohio State has seen all season, and I think if Michigan can just completely wreck that part of the game, it doesn't matter how good Jeremiah Smith is if Will Howard has no time to get rid of the football, right? So if Stewart, Moore, Graham, and Grant can get in there and be game wreckers, I think that'll obviously bode really well for Michigan.
I think my last thing I would say, or the last point on it, I think there's two things Michigan needs to do in this game that they pretty much haven't done all year. Look, Davis Warren's interception was a bad one last week, but largely he's played pretty well. He's got to throw the ball downfield. I don't know if it's going to be a call to Fred Moore, if it's going to be Tyler Morris doing like he did again in the Rose Bowl. We saw some more usage from him last week on a crosshair and getting upfield too. But I think Fred Moore is the guy, but you got to be willing to put the ball downfield and take those risks. And I know it kind of reminds me of 2022 where it was like they scared the living crap out of JJ for throwing an interception. And he's missing. I mean, guys are open, right? There's guys open downfield. They got to be willing to let him take a shot. And the other thing, I think they need to punt perfectly. Like I don't know the inconsistency with Doman, but like we were just talking about short fields, they have got to win the field position battle on every possession.
Yep.
No 3 and outs. When you do punt the ball, fine, boot it. Don't give up any returns. Like you've got to basically be Iowa in this game. I know we've made that joke a bunch, but like it's just reality at this point. I think they can. I don't think it's extremely likely, but I am going to predict Michigan to win it just so somebody is, but we'll see how it goes.
What's your score prediction?
I always try to get really cute and like figure out like a previous game or some reference to something. So I wanted to do the 1969 game, but I'm like, I can't put 24-12. There's no chance. I think I did 31-27, and I cannot remember what weird little the hint I was trying to leave was so bad I don't remember what it was. So there you go. But yeah, somebody had posted about the over-under being like 48. I wouldn't be shocked if this is a low-scoring game. I mean, more than likely, it's Ohio State probably putting up a big number and winning comfortably again.
Yeah, they might put up 48 on them.
Yeah.
Themselves.
Well, if the situation arises where Ohio State does get a big enough lead and Michigan does kind of get into that spot where they're ready to go home, we'll see. Ryan Day's been talking about hanging 100 for the last 3 years. I think he's up to 71 or something. So we'll see if he goes all in and just tries to absolutely embarrass Michigan if that opportunity arises. I would imagine he would. I think less to do with Michigan and more to do with his own fan base and the pressure they've put on him because of this game, if that makes sense, right? But we got a little bit of time. Let's touch on recruiting a little bit. Obviously, we always say like a lot of the stuff we talk about could change tonight. I think our conversation around one recruit literally changed in the time we were game planning for the show to now, right? So like there's some variability there. We talked a lot about Bryce Underwood. If you guys want to look it up, previous podcast, Josh and I were on here for over an hour. But look, the impact of Bryce has continued to trickle out in terms of the mood around Ann Arbor and Michigan. I think had 2 big priorities with this 2025 class. That was getting Bryce and then retaining some guys like Andrew Olesh and Andrew Marsh. Olesh is still an interesting situation. His dad clearly is a big Penn State fan, and James Franklin's negative recruiting around NOA is hitting hard there. But Josh, you posted kind of a intel roundup today on some guys. Derek Meadows, let's touch on him. We've said for a while we never thought him and Bryce were a package deal. Right. Like it seemed likely he would leave LSU if Bryce did. I thought Notre Dame would probably be the more likely destination just because he was a Notre Dame lean for a very long time, visited them after Michigan. It sounds like Alabama got back into this game. They obviously lost Cunningham to Ole Miss, who before the pod, we were talking about this. If you guys haven't seen Cunningham's film, go watch his huddle. It's the best wide receiver tape I've ever seen. So Bama might be freaking out a little bit trying to get Meadows in the fold. So you went from it's going to be close, but Michigan leads to what Bama probably leads in that recruitment now.
Yeah, I think that happened in like
5 minutes.
Yeah, like an hour after I posted what I did. The Bama news started coming out. So, I at this point, I'm expecting Alabama to be the choice for Derek Meadows. It was always assumed that Meadows would be a package deal with Underwood, but obviously never confirmed. I think at this point, if he really wanted to go to Michigan, he would have picked Michigan by now. So yeah, I mean, we'll kind of see how things shake out, but I don't think Michigan is going to push very hard if it ends up, being what we think it is in terms of Alabama getting the momentum. So, things change quickly in recruiting, especially in the NIL days where, people can come in with offers and all kinds of things last minute, change their minds, come back again, because we heard earlier that Notre Dame and Alabama kind of backed off a little bit. And then obviously in the next hour, Bama was back in. So Maybe I don't think it was fully like Bama backing off and changing their minds. I think, the truth was probably somewhere in the middle there. But Derek Meadows, I'm not expecting him to end up at Michigan. I would be surprised if they add another wide receiver through the recruiting. Well, through 2025 recruiting, I think they'll just go right to the portal and add a kind of an experienced guy. I mean, they've got 3 guys committed right now that are pretty good 4-star guys. So they're definitely not void of talent in this recruiting cycle with wide receivers. So, unfortunate, but that's what happens in recruiting these days. You win some, you lose some, especially when you get involved late with guys. I'm just glad that they're swinging, at these guys and taking shots that they typically weren't taking shots at in the past. So again, that's the way it goes. I mean, sometimes you strike out, sometimes you hit homers. So in this certain situation, it was a strikeout. So that's all right.
And you hit on the larger point, and guys, make sure if you aren't already, Michigan.rivals.com. We've been recovering. We've been covering the recruiting every day, and obviously we're getting close to the signing day, so we're getting all our stuff in line to be able to have full coverage on that. So if you're not a subscriber already, promo code BLUE30 gets you the first 30 days free, gives a shot. But Michigan.rivals.com, we're going to continue to cover this. I think right now that's the biggest thing we can say is Michigan's taking swings, right? We've seen them get back involved at the edge position. Well, not even back involved, but like talking to top edges across the country, right? Javion Hilson's a guy Michigan seems to be trending well with, a teammate of Brady Hart. Isaiah Gibson, one of the top edges, committed to Georgia. Jakeem Stewart, they were trying to get in the conversation with him as well. There's also, what's his first name? Moten.
Travis.
Yeah.
Look
really.
Look at Brock.
Yeah. Let's go.
I'm
intrigued by him. Lou was on him years ago, back when he was at Western. Obviously Owusu Boateng is still out there as well. Michigan got back involved, it sounds like, with Jordan Young, who ended up committing to Clemson. Alex Graham is still out there as flip potential. The big name that we're still trying to track, and everybody's being really weird about, the tackle from Alabama, Ty Haywood.
Yeah.
The potential of partnering him with Babaloa. If you asked me about a Haywood for Meadows trade, I'm making that trade.
Oh, for sure.
No offense to Meadows, but I thought keeping Marsh was the bigger deal. And oh my gosh, the idea of Babaloa and Meadows. So I think the point is Underwood came in. It's late. We know that, but Michigan's taking some shots. They're going to finish with, depending on, all the final recruiting rankings and jockeying, 5 to 9, somewhere in that range kind of class. And the momentum we're seeing with 2026 as well.
Yep.
Massive.
Yep.
And we know Bryce is going to enroll early, and he's going to be around for the bowl practices that they now have because of the Northwestern win. And I mean, his era arguably begins next week. Really, as soon as he gets on campus and he's a part of these practices, it's going to be hard to not have that vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they just want to trot him out there his freshman year and throw him to the wolves, but I think he's good enough to handle that. I'll be curious to see what Michigan. I know for a fact they want to add a portal guy out of the for quarterback. So, at least someone there to kind of offset the lack of experience to experience ratio there. So, I mean, realistically, you could be looking at a completely transformed quarterback room next year in terms of who's in it and who's gone and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if Underwood is as advertised and all signs point to that he is, I don't think he's going to relinquish much of the playing time or much of the field anyway. But I mean, it's always good to have that kind of backup plan just in case you need to give a kid more seasoning or whatever. But yeah, I mean, the era starts next Wednesday when he signs, and yeah, and you just hope the good times roll from there. But when you add a kid like Bryce Underwood, the ripple effects are obviously immediate in 25, but when you look at the 26 class and 27, those are going to be felt too. As long as Bryce Underwood's on campus, those ripple effects are going to be felt. And your hope is that Michigan can kind of get a similar guy on defense to where people can kind of rally around as well. And, like a guy like Owusu Boateng definitely fits that mold of a guy that can kind of like, hey, these 5 stars and Javion Hilson as well. I mean, obviously, because the defense goes a lot beyond just one player making plays. Adding 2 guys like that in 25.
The quarterback of the defense, if you will.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, the quarterback touches the ball every single play. I mean, there's not necessarily a guy that touches the ball every single play on defense, but that you have guys
that'd be cool.
Yeah. I mean, that would be the greatest defense in any level of football. So, I mean, there's decisions, there's moves that still need to be made. There's dominoes that still need to fall once the season wraps up, and be interesting to see what happens and how things kind of evolve. But I mean, Trevor, I think you nailed it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'll give you credit for once. The Underwood era starts next week, and I just find it really hard to believe that he'll relinquish any of that spotlight and any of that time in the 3 years that he'll be on campus, because if he's as advertised, he ain't staying 4. He's not staying 4. He's going to be 3 and out. So better enjoy him while you have him, because he's not long for Michigan if he's as we think he is.
Yeah, this is entirely opinion based for me, but I completely agree with Josh. I've seen a lot of people talking about Michigan going to get a bridge quarterback between Davis Warren and Bryce Underwood. In my personal opinion, there should be no bridge quarterback. Michigan can go and get a quarterback from the portal, but he's not going to be the starter. I don't think you pay a guy millions of dollars to come in and sit on the bench. So that's my 2 cents on the situation. I think Underwood I think it's his team, like you said, Josh, starting a week from today, Wednesday, and it's my expectation that he's going to be the starter there in the season opener.
Yeah.
I think because of how the quarterback room has to be reshaped, we've been talking about this in the last few pods, like 2 to 4 new quarterbacks could be added. I wouldn't be shocked if there's another QB in the 25 class, more project developmental guy added. I wouldn't be shocked if there's 1 to 2 added in the portal. Maybe one's a Jack Tuttle type, the older leadership guy that adds some, whatever to the room. Ottawa Traveler brings it up. This is probably the most common name, the Miller Moss. I think they have to. I think they have to add a guy with starter experience. Not because of anything to do with Bryce Underwood, but you just can't go into next year with an unknown at quarterback, even if that is Bryce Underwood. That doesn't mean Bryce Underwood's not going to start. I think you have to have that on the roster. If there's a perception of competition or even actual competition, then fine. But I think you have to have some experience on the roster next year, because that's only going to help Underwood as well. But it would just be such a big risk to go into next year again, given what Underwood's potential is. And maybe it ends up like Clemson, where somebody starts the first 2 or 3 games. I can't remember his name, Kelly Bryant, maybe, before Trevor Lawrence took over.
It was Kelly Bryant, and then Trevor Lawrence took over.
Yeah. I don't know.
Aiden JJ too. I mean, it's the same.
Yeah.
Same deal.
Yeah, if you have somebody good enough, if you get somebody good enough in the portal that you're doing like a JJ situation where you're bringing Underwood on as the year goes on, then okay. I don't know. I don't know. I'm with Bryce. I mean, Brock. He's on my mind. It'd be dumb to predict Underwood not to be the starter next year just because of what he is and everything. But I do think, and then we could spend another couple hours talking about the potential transfers, ins and outs. That'll come soon enough when the season wraps up. But anyway. I'm gonna save my LSU rant. I'm not fired up enough, and nobody really said anything. So hopefully on Sunday somebody gets me going. The conversation around Underwood from people outside of the recruitment bubble and some people directly at LSU. There's just some things I want to say. So I will say that Sunday. So if those of you who have joined us live here and been in the comments, thank you as always. I appreciate you guys that stick around and take part in the conversation on a weird Wednesday afternoon. We were able to do it and still had some really good viewership. So thank you. If you're watching this back or listening, of course, through your normal podcast streams, make sure you are liking, subscribing, notification bell. YouTube will be live Sunday. I'm assuming at our usual time. If not, check our Twitters or whatever. But Sunday at 7 is usually when we like to run. So hopefully we're talking about a miraculous, unbelievable Michigan 4th straight victory over Ohio State. Maybe a couple commits drop, or maybe we've got some more updates heading into signing day. Either way, it's going to be the end of the season, and surely there's going to be tons to talk about. So make sure you're there with us Sunday. And between now and then, and every day after that, we'll be talking at michigan.rivals.com. Make sure you're a subscriber. And hey, we've got an hour Michigan basketball. Brock, yay!
I think it's actually at 8:30.
What?
Yeah, 8:30.
Why were we talking about 6 o'clock this entire time?
Because I think the losers bracket game is at 6, and then Michigan Xavier will follow at 8:30.
Yeah.
I probably scared the shit out of you a little bit. Like, wait, what?
I was gonna say, I'm like, how is it 7 o'clock already? But I'm like, oh, no.
I don't know. Let's not talk about it too much because it's going to be irrelevant in a few hours anyway.
But hey, I want to say too, I want to wish everyone, including you guys, a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to Trevor and Brock for everything that you've done for us, for me, for the website, to making it a great place. Happy Thanksgiving from my family to yours, to everyone out there. Enjoy time with your family. Yeah, life's good. So let's keep the good times rolling.
Well, we can't end in a goofy way after that. So yeah, I'll echo Josh's sentiment. Whatever Thanksgiving looks like for you guys, I hope it's a good one and it's safe and peaceful and filled with family, friends, again, whatever you're doing. So
amen.
Thank you, Josh. All right, guys, we'll be back Sunday again. Hopefully some unbelievable Michigan win, because I mean, we'll just be giddy laughing like on laughing gas.
I don't think I'd be able to contain myself.
No. Oh my God.
I'd just be laughing. Just be an hour straight of me laughing.
It'd be straight laughing and trolling. Oh, so, fingers crossed. God, that would be fun.
Oh man.
So, anyway, thanks again, guys. We'll see you soon. Hail to the podcast.